All right, here's a question though.
Yes.
Now that we're talking about alliances, why do we need to start thinking of alliances at this stage? Why does everybody have to go form their own party and then they'll come and say, oh, well, I stand for A, B, C, D. I also stand for A, sub-Roman 1, which is the same as A. Why not just form one party and all of you enter into this one party and go into one vehicle? Why do we have to confuse ourselves into so many? There's chama cha Mwananchi, chama cha Uzalendo, Party of Action. Then you'll have another one called it in Kiswahili, chama cha Vitendo. Same thing.
Okay, I think I'll handle that one. We first of all have to understand why do people form political parties, because only then are we able to understand why alliances have to be built in any political scenario. If you look at what has happened since last year, maybe last 2 years since we had the new constitution, is that there is more space now for political participation. Now, and politics being a game of interests, all people seem to have different interests. I don't know whether there is any one Kenyan that has a duplicate set of interests like the other. And political parties, when they form, are formed by people with common interests. And that's why I don't agree with Ngonjiri here when he says that a party cannot be formed mainly by people from one age group, because there's nothing wrong with that. If people of a certain age group are being affected by a problem more, they might find it necessary to form a political party to advance their agenda through the right forum, which is through legislative measures. If you don't pass acts of parliament, if you don't make laws that are going then to impact on those problems or those issues that you're targeting, then it's not any useful to be within a political party. Now, the other question is, why do we have to form so many parties and then join an alliance? Why don't we form one political party? It's because everyone is coming from a different direction. Now, all these parties that have formed the Hoja Alliance have their own distinct set of needs. Yeah? And they have now come together to see how can we collaborate in ensuring that we achieve these ideals we've set out as individual parties. The landscape is also changing. I don't think there's any single political party that will marshal enough muscle to be able to form government on its own. Yeah, so that reality has also to be put in perspective.
Isn't that because we have very many political parties? Isn't that one of the main reasons why we cannot have any party forming government?
But forming political parties is a democratic right. So we cannot limit, we cannot legislate or put a cap on the number of political parties we ought to have. It's just like saying we don't want to have more than X number of companies operating in Kenya. I don't think that can be enforced in any way. So the issue of whether political parties are many or few is neither here nor there. But the threshold that has now been set for political parties, we'll only see it that over time, only those political parties with a real strategy, with real clout, and with a lot of impact on the issues are going to remain sustainable. So over time, we might be seeing a reduction in political parties rather than an increase in political parties.
I mean, I think I would concur with those comments. That indeed, the thing you call a political party, you sometimes understand it to be an animal out there, but really it's just human beings who have come together to push a particular interest or particular views, and perhaps who are convinced that by so working together and an identity called X, they can then harness their ideas and their energies towards that common purpose which they seek to achieve. And here you have then that vehicle called a political party, because now we have a legal structure that then tells you, if you're talking about governance situation, if you're talking about participation in governance and government country, this then is how you have to organize yourselves. And how we do organize ourselves? We organize ourselves in political parties. And because there's a diversity of interests and thoughts and ideas out there, you're likely to have many. But obviously, I concur that over time, what happens in the democratic development of any nation, most countries have started with many, and over time, people realize as the country is developing, these common principles and ideas begin to form much more, and you realize then parties then begin to see the usefulness of merging sometimes, collapsing, and some even just decide, let's fold up because I think our interests have already been secured by or in this way.
You know, I'm lucky today because in the studio I have 3 men of a similar age group. Right? It's interesting that you are not actually in any particular party because of your age group.
Yeah.
Because all of you would be in the same party.
Yes.
Here's the reality, though. Being very eloquent speakers that you are, and whatever you're saying, the reality in Kenya is that political parties are formed by personalities. And we go into this political party because of personalities. For example, Kenya Solidarity is Maina Njenga. ODM is Raila Odinga. Power Party is Raphael Tuju. Well, the New Democrats. That's why I was calling you small fish, because you don't have any big name, all right? So let's say the New Democrats is Dishon Kerima. And we have, of course, TNA, Uhuru Kenyatta. And he's right now with Eugene Omala, where they're launching the new Ford Kenya headquarters. Political parties are just personalities, where you can find one hopping from one party to another, and the rest of us just follow this man to wherever he goes, or lady to wherever they go, to that political party. Is that just being nonsensical, for lack of a better word?
I think the problem is a lot more fundamental than political parties. I think we live in a country where voters don't actually understand. You see, let me use an example. Let me get out of Kenyan space for a while, and let's look at Democrats and Republicans, or Labour and Tories in the UK. And there's always a joke that was given about a guy who was about to die, and he was a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was told he was going to die, he wanted to quickly change into a Republican because he didn't want the Democrats to lose a member. This is a guy. This is what it means to belong to a party in a lot of other parts of the country. You actually, and you're born, you believe in that party, you're committed to that party, and it doesn't matter who is in charge of that party. In fact, if you get a bad leader, a bad personality who starts taking over the party, you actually kick him out because you don't want to corrupt the tenets of that party. Now, in Kenya, we are still a young democracy. We are still getting used to dealing with political parties, to the extent where first we are coming from KANU, from where for a long time we were a one-party state, where you became powerful based on your personality and your negotiating capacity. So what happened when we got multi-party democracy in 1992? Individuals who
everybody wanted to exercise
just walked away and formed their own units. And
yeah.
This is a country where we call political parties vehicles. That thing is used by so many people, even without any shame. It actually just explains to you what a political party is. We have Kiraito who considers PNU a bus. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
It explains to you that for a lot of people, a political party is not an ideology. It is a process that takes you from one place to the other one. And you see, if you have a vehicle, you park it. And when you need to move from a place to place, you move and then you park it. Now, part of how political parties is going to develop in this country is when voters start actually determining what they stand for. When we start having our politics change into a class-based politics, where you have people, blue-collar people saying, you know what, we need a lot more government getting involved in how the kind of salaries we're being paid and stuff like that. While the white-collar folks are saying, no, we need less government. We need to be able to determine. Now, that's when political parties start creating niches for themselves. A party will develop that says, no, as we are pushing the interest of the white-collar establishment. And you join that party knowing that that is the interest that they push. Others are pushing the blue-collar establishment. You join that party knowing that. Now, today, I would be very, very hard-pressed, very honestly, to tell you what the difference is among a lot of the parties we have. Maybe as we develop, it's going to happen. Something's going to change.
Let me interject there. And indeed, it's good Ngujiri confesses as such. He does not know the difference. And I think that just basically explains, you can imagine, one, he has already confessed to be supporting a particular political personality.
Yeah.
Two, to be associating himself with a particular political movement, but he still cannot disassociate that one which is associating himself with any other. And that's a bit worrying. I can. TN is absolutely different, and there is a completely different character from what TNA, our DNA, is very different from what he's talking about. One, he's not completely right by saying that political parties are not vehicles. They are a vehicle, in one sense, because they convey certain things. They do convey ideas, they do convey people. Indeed, they are a platform upon which certain social, political, economic, even cultural ideas are taken from one place to another. Indeed, that's what a vehicle does. It's a conveyance. So that indeed it is inaccurate to begin to say that a political party is not a vehicle. It is. But it is much more than that. And which is what, for instance, at TNA we're talking about. That first and foremost, it is that party that is seeking to grow and to grow this idea that this is about the individual. Me, Karaoke, Amina, Otieno, Koske, ordinary people in this country converging their ideas and whatever it is they think this country can become and working together. Not beginning to identify ourselves primarily, around big personalities. No,
it's not the personality thing.
It is not. In fact, that is why, as we speak now, the names that you have mentioned are all in different parts of the country doing different things. Because there's the thing which the party is doing, and there's the things which the prominent personalities,
the personalities are in different,
affiliated to the party are doing, which are completely different things.
When you talk about TNA, just, I'm sorry to cut you short. When you talk about TNA, for example, and what it stands for, we know the first thing that TNA said, it's bringing the young ideologies together, bringing young ideas and fresh ideas together. Now, when you look at the Mkenya Solidarity, it's the same thing that you're saying. We are young people. We feel that we need to have a kind of vehicle.
It's only that we say it in Kiswahili.
You say it in Kiswahili, they say it in English. Yeah. All right? But these two groups of youth are actually different. Is it so clear that the youths that are represented by Maina Njenga are very different from the youths that are being represented by TNA?
I don't think so. And in fact, I would say definitely not. They're not different. I mean, they're young people in this country. But TNA has gone beyond saying this is a party that is representing young people. No. TNA is a party that actually has young people leading that agenda, which is why, if you look at its profile of its leadership, for instance, I would challenge Ngujiri here with the groups he's associating with. Show us the profile of leadership and then explain to us how then you can tell us that party is the one which is, this one is by young people, for instance, not just for. And we have now transited from that language of doing things for people. We are saying we are doing these things together. And there's a big difference in terms of the philosophy and principle of those two political ideologies.
I'm assuming that's the same thing as the New Democrats.
Thank you. When you live in glass houses, you should be very careful to throw stones. And I say this specifically with Peter in mind. TNA is, a month and a half old?
Yes.
2 months old. Before TNA was launched, the day before, or maybe a week before that, their current presidential candidate was the chairman of KANU. I am still to hear what it is that was a different ideology that he now espouses in TNA that he wasn't able to espouse in KANU. And for me, this is it. You see, we are talking about a party that was 50-something years old, that he had actually become chairman of in a very open process. This particular one, where he's a presidential candidate, I haven't heard anybody else. Okay, I had some mention that he might run against him. But when TNA was launching, it wasn't TNA that was launching. It was Uhuru Kenyatta who was launching his presidential campaign. It was, you can call it whatever you want to call it. That is what it was. So if we are going to talk about a party by young people, then what I would actually have wanted to, if you're going to push it as a party, Uhuru is 52 years old. If you're going to push this as a party led by young people, for young people, then put a young person as a presidential candidate of TNA. Then you can actually argue with me and tell me it's a party for young people. Otherwise, what we have is old people using young people as a front to try and deflect to other people and tell this is a young party. You asked me about Mkenya, whether the difference between the people who follow Mkenya are different from the people who follow TNA. They are very, very, very different. Part of the reason is that a lot of the people in the Mkenya Solidarity movement right now are a lot of the disempowered people, a lot of the young people who can't speak English, who don't have internet, who couldn't come to KICC. Our launch was in Kamukochi.
What do you mean they can't speak English?
What I'm talking about is people who have not had the same access to education. You see, right now,